All right, I think that's long enough. Uh, okay, hi. I hope everybody's doing okay. Um, um, let's see. So I'm going to apologize right away. For whatever reason, my cough is sort of acting up today, so I'll just apologies in advance. As far as I'll tell you the other another thing here regarding the class and syllabus. I will be updating, excuse me, the syllabus this weekend. We're not going to do that group thing. I've actually kind of we're going to do it. We're just not going to do it today. We're not going to do it this week. I've decided I'm going to uh, take just a little bit longer with this argument stuff, and I want to take my time with it. So I'm gonna work tomorrow and probably Saturday to make sure you have an updated schedule. So that's just one of the changes in the schedule that's going to happen. Let's see, anything else? I think that was it on my part. Any comments, questions about stuff before we sort of begin? Any concerns or anything? Okay, we'll take that as a no. At any time, of course, feel free to put something in chat, um, and so on. All right, let's let's first of all just sort of review what we have done, sort of refresh yourself, and then we're going to move on. I'm going to introduce one more sort of thing to you here. We're going to talk a little bit about. Actually, I'm going to introduce another term to you. We're going to talk about what facts are. Let me mute my phone. Sorry about that. I'm usually good about that. Okay. Um, if it's important, I might have to take it. But so we're going to refresh our memories. I'm going to introduce another term to you. We're going to talk about facts, and then we're going to talk about definitions, like the nature of definitions, and then we are going to move on to argumentation. We should be able to get to arguments by the end of today. I doubt we're going to finish. That'll probably continue into next week, and then we'll do an assignment, and then excuse me, again, my apologies. And then we're going to do things like fallacies, and then that'll complete our look into um, what do you call it? Sort of critical reasoning. Then we're going to move on to like some more substance and content. So that's kind of what's going to happen. And you'll see that reflected in the in the update in the schedule I'm going to make. Okay, so for now, then let's switch over here and let's go to. Um, ooh, is that backwards to you?
No, it's okay. No, it was good.
Okay, on my monitor, like the actual notes themselves are fine. That what I'm actually going to use, but when I'm looking at it in my monitor, it's reversed. So I needed to do that. Okay, not a problem. Let's remind ourselves and what we're doing here. Of all times to start, um, what we're doing here, the purpose, if you will, of looking at these intellectual tools, what your author calls philosophical tools, has to do with what we call critical reasoning. And I find it interesting, having been in the classroom 18 years, having been in education um, in some sort of teaching capacity longer than that, um, closer to about 22 years, and then having been in and associated with the university since 1993 when I was 18 when I entered university. So my entire adult life, basically. I find it interesting that, and I remember this as a student myself, we talk about things like critical reasoning. You hear it, especially, in the past, 10, 15 years. You hear about it. You're told to be a critical reasoner. You're told, I hate this phrase and I hope you stop using it if you do use it, but thinking outside the box. It's a dumb phrase. Um, I'll talk about it if you want, but you hear things like, think for yourself and blah, blah, blah. And I find it odd. And like the word fact, we're going to talk about here in a little while. I find it odd that in spite of all we hear about those things, it's very, very rare that students encounter actual discussion about what those things mean and are given examples and are led through a process of what that means. So, big picture, that's kind of my motivation here, right? My motivation is as someone who not only cares about this stuff, just intrinsically, just as a person, something's happening. Is somebody sharing something? So, Amro, there we go. Appreciate that. So, again, my apologies. So as someone who just cares about this stuff, and there's a reason why I studied philosophy. There's a reason why I was a music major, and I almost completed that degree. Then I was an English creative writing major. Didn't get very far in that before I found philosophy. And from my first philosophy class, when I realized we did this kind of stuff, I switched majors within like 6 weeks of the class, and I never looked back. I don't expect you to do that. That's not my point. But the point is I care about this. And as someone who gets paid to do this, and someone who cares about my community and so on, I think these things are important. And if you take some of these skills and what we're talking about and you reflect on them and you internalize them, you make them personal because you care about your own intellectual state, you care about the development of your intellectual powers, and realize that doing that, there's no guarantees, right? I can guarantee you death and taxes, right? Other than that, but if I could guarantee you this, I would guarantee you that it will help you navigate the world. It makes you smarter and better able to take in information and deal with it. So, just sort of a reminder of why we're doing this, and why I spend so much time on this sort of logic stuff and argument stuff. So, if you remember the video, Amy Schaefer, I want you to be like Amy, essentially. Okay, so just very quickly, then let's recap these tools here. And this is sort of our vocabulary here. All right, we have propositions. Propositions is our philosophical word for a declarative sentence. I'm going to put this down here really quick so I don't forget. A declarative sentence is a sentence that makes a claim about the world, and it's either true or it's false. Whether we know it's true or false is a different story. How we determine it's true or false is another story. All we're concerned with right now is that there are sentences that make claims about the world. It's bright and sunny outside. It is 2:11 p.m. There's a cell phone sitting on top of my desk. Those are all declarative sentences. Those are all propositions. They're claims about the world. They're either true or they're false. Propositions contain facts. Let me change color here. Contain facts. I'm going to spend a little bit of time right now talking about that. I kind of forgot to do this last time. Maybe it's not that big a deal, but I think it means something. This is another one of those words that we talk about, that we use. I mean, I could ask each of you, is there anyone here who has never used this term before? Feel free in chat, right, to say, has anyone here never used the word fact before? You've certainly heard it used before. Have any of you ever had a discussion about what facts are? Like an actual discussion about what facts are, not what particular facts there are, but what a fact is. Couple of you, if you're willing to, the print, I don't have my glasses with me. That print is small. If I get your name wrong, pardon me. I don't have my glasses, and so Katadria, I hope.
Yeah, it's Catadria.
Katadria, okay.
Yeah.
If you don't, yeah, if you don't mind, could you say something about what kind of conversation you had?
So me and my best friend, we do like to have a lot of really weird discussions and stuff like that. And we just had conversations about all types of things about the world, and we
Interesting. Okay, so here, I'm gonna just list here. So things. Pardon my handwriting. Let me see if I can make it better here. Adjust the position of my tablet. Things that can be proven. Somebody else. So who else said yes? Cosette. Again, no glasses, and the print is really small here. So if you're able to, if you're willing to, what kind of conversation have you had about what facts are?
Yes, like in high school debate class, what facts were. It just had to be outside of someone's opinion. It had to have some type of reference of more than one source of reference is usually better. But basically the more references that you have that can verify a statement, um, can kind of prove it to be a fact. But even with that, though, I think that we still have some things that are not facts, and we can, find sources of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Like Katadria said.
Okay. Bassem, you said mainly about scientific fact in conversations. Can you say something about that, and then you'll be the last person I call on here?
because part two.
Okay. Scientific fact, and you mentioned something about proof. Okay, that's interesting. Pardon my handwriting. I'm whatever. I'm doing the best I can here. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to give you a definition of fact. I'm not going to write this because it's going to take too much, but I will say it as many times as you need me to. And we're going to adopt this as a fact. It does come from a very well known scientist. I will write his name down His name is Stephen J. Gould, Gould. He's a biologist. Any aspiring biologists with us today? Just out of curiosity. No one studying biology? Anyone know anything about biology, like biological theory? Medicine counts as biology. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody know what punctuated equilibria is? Psychology. So there are areas of psychology that, or let me say it this way: you are not going to be able to be a successful psychologist in any sense unless you understand uh, very well certain aspects of biology. For sure. Okay, good, 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 excellent. Do you know what punctuated equilibria is? Anybody? This is specific to evolutionary theory. Okay. It's in evolutionary theory when you read or listen about what are sometimes called saltations. I'll write that word down. Saltation. Saltation, or plural is saltations. That's the Latin word for a jump. In Spanish, the word still exists as saltar. A saltation is a jump, and in evolutionary theory, there are these periods of short duration in terms of evolutionary time where there are change between species. And those short periods of time can be 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years, which to human terms is quite a long time. In evolutionary time, as the expression goes, it's kind of the blink of an eye, right? And so, Stephen Jay Gould's the one who and his writing partner are the ones that came up with this theory that is very well established as part of evolutionary theory. So we're going to use his definition of fact, and just another sort of another sort of motivation here. You know, when I first heard this, and I'll tell you in a second. It's one of those things that I can't get out of my head. It kind of makes sense in a way that goes beyond science. Now he was a biologist. He's dead now. He was a biologist. He's writing, and he's not pretending to be anything other than a biologist. And he was very good about staying in his lane, and what he commented on and what he didn't comment on. Um, uh, I'm bold enough to suggest that this definition I'm going to give you here in just a second applies across the board. So here's his definition. I'll say it as many times as you need me to. He says a fact in science can only mean confirmed to such a degree that to deny provisional assent would be an absurdity. A fact in science can only mean confirmed to such a degree that to deny provisional assent would be an absurdity. I'll say it a couple more times and then we'll talk about it. Fact can only mean confirmed to such a degree that to deny provisional assent, 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 would be an absurdity. One more time, and that'll be it. Fact can only mean confirmed to such a degree that to deny provisional assent would be an absurdity. Now, let's unpack that a little bit, and then we're going to relate it to our definition of proposition here. Now, if we look here at what some of you said, a fact are things that can be proven outside of opinion, something that can be referenced, scientific fact, something to do with proof. So this is interesting, and it's not necessarily wrong. But the problem there's sort of two problems with this, and I want you. It's important that we kind of understand this, and it's part of the motivation for why we do this to begin with. First of all, actually, let me put it over here. First of all, notice that there are many, let's say, what do we call it? Let's say characterizations. There's many characterizations here, and if I would have asked more people, we would have gotten more, um, a longer list here, right? Rejoin on your phone. That's fine, Sean. Yeah, Cosette, so we're in the process of talking about the definition I just gave you, so we're going to break down those parts. So I'm getting to it. So first thing is notice, I called on what 3 or 4 people, and I got 3 or 4 different ways of talking about what a fact is. What do you think the problem with that is? First of all, what issue do we have with what just happened there, with what you see on your screen?
If we can't agree on what a fact is, we can't really talk about what we know to be true.
Exactly. Thank you. One of the problems is when we talk to each other, or when you're reading something, or when you're just listening to something, right? Whether it be a scientist or a professor or a priest or a politician or something, and they use words like fact, which they do, all of them do. Um, how do we know we're talking about the same thing? Right? And it's not that people can't use words in different ways. I'm not suggesting that at all. I am suggesting that when it matters, we need to be careful. We need to be clear about what we mean so that other people can be clear about what we mean. So for arguing, or whether it's a colloquial argument like you just have in everyday life, or whether it's a philosophical argument, which is we'll talk about by the end of today. We'll start that conversation. Um, Probably means something than what you think it means. Or if we're doing research, or we're presenting some research or whatever, we need to be on the same page. We need to come to, so that we can come to some sort of collective understanding. Even if we don't agree with each other, we're not going to have a proper understanding if we're not being clear about how we're using our terms. Does that make sense to you? And so sometimes we've got to, you know, oftentimes when I'm arguing with people, I have to ask them, what do you mean by this term? And I will have to adopt their use of the term. Otherwise, it's just going to get messy, and it's not my place to force someone to use the term I'm using. Now, if I'm using a term and someone doesn't understand it, then it's my job to tell them what it means so that we can talk about it, right? You see what I mean? There's another problem here too. What do you think another problem is with these definitions here, or these characterizations?
One of the things I was just gonna mention, or I was gonna ask about, was um, the issues with stating something as a fact is that it's perspective, and like one of the big things I've
Yeah.
in the audio.
So I think that kind of hits on what I wanted to talk about. Let me give you an aside here really quick. These are our opinions of fact. Interesting. Okay, because that's kind of tagging on with what Brandon just said. Yeah. So let me get to that in a second. The thing about the blue dress, the blue gold dress. One of the funny things about studying philosophy is all of it. Like when that came out, when that went viral. What was that, like 2 years ago or something? If you study philosophy, you are undoubtedly gonna like, that was no surprise. Like philosophy students and professors the world over were like, really? Like this is a thing. It's one of those funny things that we've known of. It's like when the Matrix came out. That was what, like 24 years ago or something. It was great, and we all got excited about it because, oh, here's this philosophical movie, but it wasn't really surprising. It was basically just Plato. So if you ever read Plato's Republic, then it's basically the Matrix. Um, it's just prettier. Um, so yeah. So one of the other problems is that not only do we have the problem of many characterizations where we need to be on the same page here, but which one is correct, right? Because each of these could be characterized in a different sort of way and capture something different, where we want to capture sort of the same thing. So it's not just many characterizations. There is the problem of, let's call it the problem of um, I'll use a fancy word here. The problem of crystallization. To crystallize means to like become fixed, right? And so the problem is how to set a definition and have a definition that works, that is as universal and applicable as possible, that captures what we want it to capture when we use the term. So this is another reason why I use Stephen Jay Gould's definition. So let's say that again, and then let's talk about what it actually means. A fact in science can only mean confirmed to such a degree that to deny provisional assent would be an absurdity. Now, do I have something up here? Let me double check. Okay, let's give an example here. Okay, so we're all believers, right? Everybody here believes something. I'll make a connection here between. I did this a little bit last time, I know, but I'm gonna dig my heels in here. We all believe something. I'm not talking like categories like religion, politics, whatever. Like, but we all believe something. And if I were to ask you, what do you believe in? And I don't mean like what particular religious, what particular political belief do you have on healthcare? I mean, what are the sorts of, when you do your believing, what is it that you are agreeing to? And we say that you are, when you say something is true, or I believe like it's clear and it's a nice day outside. So if I said, I believe if I said it's clear outside, the sky is clear. Presumably, if you say that, or if I say that, and I'm sincere about it, then I believe that the sky is clear outside. So what are you believing? You're believing a fact. Does that make sense to you? It's doubtful that there's anyone here in this room that is okay with the idea of willingly believing something that's not true, such that if you knew something were false, that you wouldn't believe it. And so if it were cloudy outside and I said, it's clear outside, and I was sincere about it, you would think there was something wrong with me. Probably. Because it's obviously clear, right? And I think this is an illustration of or let's say someone mentioned the Bible earlier. I don't know. Let's say you said something like God exists, right? Presumably, if you're sincere about that, then you believe that God exists. Excuse me. You believe that God exists. You are assenting, A-S-S-E-N-T. You are assenting to a fact. You are saying yes, that fact is true. And that's the thing that you believe in. And so if we wrote it out like in a grammatically correct sentence, I could say something like, it is clear skies, as we say, outside. Or maybe I said, God exists. First of all, we recognize that these are sentences. When I write it down like this, they're sentences. We already said that these are what we're calling propositions. It's a declarative sentence that makes a claim about the world. So these two sentences are either true or they're false. It's either true or it's false. Now, we might not know if they're true or false. That's another story. We're not talking about that. Not yet, anyway. But they are the types of sentences that are either true or false. And we say they are sentences that couch facts. What does number 2 say? Number 2 says the problem of crystallization. The problem of crystallization. Yeah, one of the problems with these notepads and all that, and maybe I don't have a cheap notepad, but I don't have like the highest quality. It's kind of like high quality mid-tier. So I did spend some money on it, but part of it is the way it's sort of designed. It's a big one. You can sort of see here. It's a big one, and the way it works, I like when I write toward the edge here, my hand actually falls off of it because it goes to the edge of the pad. And I didn't realize that when I bought it at the time, but I'm not willing to buy another one. Anyway, the problem of crystallization, the problem of crystallization in psychology. You'll hear that word a lot when you talk about memory. It's called either memory consolidation or memory crystallization. And it's talk about how memories become fixed so that we can actually remember them. That's sometimes referred to as crystallization. It's kind of an old term. I don't use it very often, but it's what popped into my head. So, okay, so these sentences are either true or false. And if we think it's clear outside and you believe that, then what you're believing, you're assenting to the proposition. You're assenting to the fact that the proposition expresses. Does that make sense to you? Anyone have a problem with that? I'm talking about your understanding here. Anyone have a problem with understanding what I'm what I'm trying to say? Are you picking up what I'm laying down here?
We understand.
Okay, repeat, please. we understand and repeat at the same time. So I'll say it one more time. Let me see if I can say it differently really quick. We all believe things. I'm asking, what do you believe? The suggestion is when you say you believe something and you and we formulate our belief in terms of a sentence like we were writing or something, what you're believing in is a fact. You're believing in something that is confirmed to such a degree that to deny provisional assent would be an absurdity. So if you think it's clear outside and you say, I believe it's clear outside, you're saying that I am believing a fact. Same with God exists. You're presumably saying that it is a fact that God exists. Okay, so that's the first part of this. So that's what the assenting part of that definition means. I'm assenting to the fact. I'm saying yes, that it's true, that fact is true. I'm saying yes, that fact is true. I'm assenting to it. Okay? Confirmed to such a degree. Now, let's take that first sentence there. It's clear outside. Now, I'm saying it. I believe it. What reasons do I have that support my belief in the fact that it is clear outside? Seems like a silly question, I know, but in all honesty, like if you're near a window, look. Go look. What reasons do you have? What information do you have that supports your belief that it is clear outside?
You look outside and you see the sun rays and you don't see any clouds.
Okay.
It's blue.
Okay. As simple or weird as it sounds, there's your actual direct experience. When I'm looking at it right now, there's a window right here, and it's clear. And I was out walking the dogs before class, not a cloud in the sky. And I'm not talking about skylines being in the way or trees or anything, right? I'm talking like clouds, right? There's no clouds. It's clear sky. So one is that there's clear sky. What are other ways we can tell? What other information do we have access to that informs our belief that it's clear outside?
Weather station, stuff like that.
Weather stations, weather apps. So you turn the TV on. You can use your app. What's another way? Yeah, weather report. Yep. What's another way? A a more indirect way.
We can feel the heat of the sun when we're outside.
Okay, that's interesting. So let's say you're outside and for whatever reason, you couldn't look up and directly see it. The condition of the air and the temperature might right. So the sun might feel, so you could be blindfolded outside, right? And the sun on your skin has a particular type of feel to it. That could be. I'll just fill this in. Like someone could tell you. Maybe you just woke up and your mom says, "Hey man, get ready for school or whatever. Make sure don't worry about bringing an umbrella because it's clear outside, right? That sort of thing." So confirmed to such a degree. When we talk about degrees, we're talking about probability here, right? We're talking about probability. And so when I look at the sky and I check my weather report and my partner calls me and she tells me, it's a really nice day outside, maybe we should go to the park later. This is all information that confirms that it is in fact clear outside. Does that make sense? And the more you add on, the more confirmed that becomes. Does that principle make sense to you? We're working our way through this definition. Okay. Now, confirmed to such a degree that to deny provisional assent. What does the word provisional mean here? Anybody?
Like temporary or within a field.
Perfect. Good. That's exactly. So if I give you provisional permission to say use my car, and the harder I needed to prove that it is cloudy outside. Let me get to that comment here in just a second. I'm not sure what that means. We'll get to that in just a second. Yeah. It's exactly, if I give you provisional assent to use my car, that means you can use my car under condition and it's temporary, right? It's exactly what provisional means. So then, what does this suggest? We know we're already dealing with probability. So everything here falls under fact here. I'll just put it here. We already know we're dealing with probability. And that last part, provisional assent. I'm a assent, right? So assent, meaning agreeing to, or as I say sometimes, if I could write, S-A-Y, saying yes to whatever proposition. Provisional assent is agreeing to on the condition that better information doesn't come along. If better information comes along, then I am in the position now where I might need to change my mind about what I assent to. Why is that important? Right now, everything tells me, all the information that I have tells me that it is clear outside. My senses tell me it's clear. The weather app says it's clear. My partner earlier said something about going to the park because it's such a clear day. It all confirms, and the more information I have, the more it's confirmed that it's clear outside. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Is it possible? Is this in the notes here? No. Okay, I'm going to introduce another term to you here while we're doing this. Logical, or you will hear me say, I'm going to say this a lot, conceptual. I'm trying to write bigger and broader so you can, so it's easier for you to read. Logical, in parentheses, conceptual possibility. And then we are going to also add to this causal, or you might say physical. I want you to steer away from that word physical when we talk about causal possibility. I'm using it just so you have a better understanding, immediate understanding of what I mean. Causal possibility. And these are vocabulary terms here, so I'm going to, let me make my thing wider here. So just so we're clear that these are terms. This is also in your reading, by the way, which you need to, hopefully you have read. Most everything I'm doing is supplement to the reading. So it's clear outside. Here's the thing. All the information we have confirms to such a degree that if I said it wasn't clear outside, you would think there's something wrong with me, right? That would be absurd. If I said, man, I'm going to the store here in a second, I need to make sure I bring my umbrella. If you thought I was serious, you might think something's wrong with me, because all the information we have points to the fact that it's clear. Here's the thing. Is it possible? Is it somehow possible that I'm mistaken? Not a rhetorical question. I want you to answer that. Is it possible that I am somehow mistaken about whether it's clear outside or not? Okay, you're taking too long. I want a gut reaction. I don't want you to think about this. I want a gut reaction.
I think I'm guessing, but it can be different for everyone because everybody lives in different parts of the world.
I'm talking about us right now here. I'm assuming at least most of you are in Houston. I'm talking about us in this room right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm talking about, like, look out the window and have a look. If you're in, Saudi Arabia, who knows, right? Maybe it's cloudy. I'm talking about right now in Houston. So somebody says,
So what if a person
No,
like,
not really.
what if it's like delusional or something?
okay,
And so they look outside and it doesn't look like it's raining. It looks like something else to them, but in their reality, it is raining or not raining. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, okay, good. So that's a possibility. Someone says no. So Andrea says no, and then someone spoke up just a moment ago. Make sure you mute yourself. There's a lot of, thank you. Sorry, it's very loud. Andrea says no, and then someone spoke up a moment ago and said no, it's not possible. Anybody want to get in on that? You don't have to, but feel free to chime in. Okay, so I'll chime in for you. I'll play. The question is, all the information we have says it's clear outside. I'm asking, is it possible that we're wrong? So
It's possible that you're wrong.
So it is possible. A few people say it's not possible. No one's speaking up, so I will play that part myself. So it's actually a pretty common response. People will say it's not possible, and they'll say things like, if if you look and you say it's cloudy outside or it's not clear outside, then something's wrong with you. It's not possible to have that information that we have and look at the sky and not think it's clear. Does that make sense? That something would be wrong with you, that no rational person would look at that. And the response is let's talk about what we mean by possibility here. Because I think part of the go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Again, just do make sure you guys mute yourselves. So let's talk a little bit about possibility, and then we're going to come back, because I think part of the problem when we do this, it's not. I mean, on the one hand, it's kind of lack of creativity. I don't mean that as a pejorative. I'm not trying to insult you, but we're not used to thinking of like serious alternatives to things, of the way things could actually be. So let me give you some things. Let's talk about logical, conceptual possibility right now, and I'm going to give you some things that are impossible for you to think about. Not necessarily for you to think about, because we can talk about it, but you won't be able to actually imagine. Here's a concept. How about the concept of an object that is simultaneously four-sided and has no sides? So let me put it into a grammatically correct sentence. Look at the nice object in my hand, the invisible object that is four-sided and has no sides. Right? Now, you might be struggling. You might think it's weird. You might think I'm trying to play a trick on you. I'm not. You cannot imagine an object that is simultaneously four-sided, and has no sides. You can imagine, most of you are probably imagining a circle and a square and trying to like stick a circle inside a square or a square inside a circle or so on. Those are two objects that... Go ahead. What?
Is it a room?
No, so good. Think about what you're imagining now. You are imagining a room, and a room has four sides. A room isn't the type of object that has no sides. Right? Imagine an object that simultaneously has no sides, zero sides, and yet has four sides. A cube has what? Sides. You're just imagining an object that has sides. Imagine that sided object with no sides. So I'll tell you, you can't do it. It is not possible. It is not possible because it is a contradiction. It is contradictory. It is a contradictory concept. It doesn't make sense. And there's no amount of work, intellectual work you're going to do that you're ever going to be able to do such that you will be able to imagine a non-sided, four-sided object. You cannot imagine, here's another one. You cannot imagine color without shape. You cannot imagine color without some sort of shape. Even if that shape is a 2D plane, whether it's flat or whether you're just seeing it like that, like that, or however far away, whatever. You cannot imagine color without imagining a shape. Here's another one. You cannot imagine an invisible colored object. I mean, like true invisibility. I'm not talking about like cloaking or anything. So there's some new cloaking technology. You ever seen Predator? That Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Predator? So if you've seen that cloaking, I'm not saying it works the same way, but like the actual mechanism, but the principle of technology works the same way. Like we have that now. Like there's this material you can throw over objects that reflects what's behind the object. So it works differently, I imagine, but it's the same principle. That's not invisible. That's cloaking, right? I'm talking about real invisibility. Yeah, yeah, you might have seen this. It's crazy. I remember it came out several years ago, and they have undoubtedly perfected it. Well, it's not.
Look up anything with DARPA.
Yeah, yeah, no, DARPA. Yeah, yeah. I was following DARPA's research for a long time uh, when I was doing philosophy of mind and stuff, and I haven't done that in a long time, so I kind of lost contact with what was happening. But yeah, for as underfunded as DARPA is, uh, they they come up with some stuff. Anyway, um, I'm talking real invisibility, not cloaking, like actual invisibility, an object that is inherently invisible and yet colored. You can't imagine that. All you can imagine is some type of cloaking. So, this is my point. So, these are contradictions. These are things that are impossible to consider. Okay? Now, let me give you let me give you a concept that is difficult to consider. It's really not, but it's going to be difficult for you probably. And I'm saying this just out of experience. It just, after doing this example for so long, I think I know what to expect. Please be honest with me. But let me give you a concept that seems impossible, but isn't. And I want your gut reactions here. Well, no, never mind. So, how about this? Let's take two sentences here. Uh, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I did this last time when I did contradiction. Let's take two sentences here. First sentence says, let's say, I believe that it is always wrong to kill innocent people. Second sentence says, I believe it's morally okay to go to war to defend our freedom. Now, the initial problem is that seems contradictory. Why? Because in war, innocent people die. And I'm talking about real war, not like a war of words or like the Cold War or something like that. I'm talking about big war, bombs, guns, tanks, flying shrapnel. I'm talking like real war where people like die, right? In those wars, to date, I cannot think of a war that has been fought where innocent people don't die or have been like injured, like seriously injured or something, right? And by innocent people, I just want to be clear who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the mother who's feeding their child who gets exploded by a bomb for no fault of hers, who has no part in the politics behind the war or anything like that. She's just trying to take care of her kid, right? That's who I'm talking about. Okay? Now, here's the concept. Can you have a war? Can you conceive of a war that does not, like big war, like we're talking about, that does not involve the death and serious injury of innocent people?
Yes.
I'm pausing to give you time for more people to chime in, either chat or say it. Just yes or no. Or I don't know is a completely valid answer. If you say I don't know, so yes, no, I don't know. Those are all valid answers.
Can I say why?
Not just yet. Hold on just a second. Ooh, interesting. Oh, this is fascinating, right? Okay. So note I love this. Let me go back to an earlier comment I made about when I first started talking about facts. I find this fascinating. And this never ceases. 18 years in the classroom now, and I still, this never ceases to fascinate me. How, like with certain words we use, how we've never had conversations about them. We've never really been asked to explain what we mean by our words, by our concepts. Or in this case, it's interesting because of the relationship between this concept of war that we're talking about, and that we're going to continue to talk about, and how it relates to our experience of the world. And part of the problem here is that we rarely have conversations about what we mean when we talk about what's possible and what isn't. And when we don't do these things, when we don't, it's like gymnastics or even to a degree riding a bike or playing an instrument or something or any skill that you have. If you never learned the skill and you don't keep practicing it, then your ability to do it and engage in these activities reduces, or in some cases goes away. Like with a language, you might learn a language and be actually fluent in a language, but if you don't use it like at all, you're not going to forget everything, but you're gonna lose your ability to effectively use it. And I find this interesting. So look at all the answers. There's 3 different answers. There's no's, there's yeses, and there's I don't knows. When to me the answer is obviously clear. Okay, so I don't, was it Brandon? I can't remember. So now's your chance. Go ahead.
I said yes. The reason why is because you can't. It's the reason why it's the reason why there's been holy wars since forever. It's the reason why the Nazis were able to do what they did. It's because of the fact that like it's how you use those words and the meanings behind them. What is innocent? You know what I'm saying? Like we were able to. One of the reasons why we were able to firebomb Tokyo and not feel bad about like the mass devastation that happened there. And this is before we even dropped nukes. Was because of the fact that Tokyo was one of those places. Hiroshima. Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
The reason why we were able to do those things is because of the fact that they were produced. That's where they were producing a lot of their weapons. And so it was like, yeah, everything is made of wood there, and we are burning people's homes, and we are killing a lot of those people. But a lot of those people are making the weapons that are killing us in continuing this war, and a lot of those people made the weapons that helped the rape of Nanking. So like,
Let me interrupt you. Hold on, just saying. So just to be clear, the question is, can you conceive of a war where without the harming of innocent people? That's the question under examination right now.
what's the definition of innocent people?
Okay, good. It actually doesn't matter. Now, don't mistake what I'm saying. It's important that we as a human species come to some agreement about what we mean by innocent. For what we're doing, it doesn't actually matter. What matters is that there's a distinction, as long as we can distinguish between innocent or not. Now, we want definitions that are not too narrow, because then you start marginalizing harm done to other people, and you actually allow more harm to be done to other people. But you don't want a really broad definition either, because it doesn't match with our experience of the world and the fact that innocent people do end up being hurt for various reasons that are beyond anybody's control. But all that matters is that there's a distinction between innocent and non-innocent. It's all that matters. The question is, can you conceive of a type of war with explosions and guns and bombs and all that where innocent people don't die? Let me be specific. A war that is carried out in such a way, to such exact precision, that only the people that need to die. Or let me say, the people that are the actual targets die. Can you conceive of that happening?
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't I say yes because of the fact that when you like there's it's kind of like a contradiction on itself. So I say no now because what I was gonna say before, there's been times where you could say, well, if you assassinate when people are like, well, just assassinate this one person, and with this magic bullet, from this magic gun, and then it'll solve this problem magically. But it's never really that simple, right? Because that person is always somebody's father, son, friend, or whatever, right?
So this is interesting. So I like the answers coming in. Let me give someone else a chance to chime in here, yes or no. Like maybe someone who says yes. Someone who says yes. What's your response? What are you conceiving of?
Could you hear me?
I could not. No, now I can.
Okay. So, I think you could possibly conceive like where innocent people don't die if like the two warring sides come to like an agreement where they're like they talk about like, hey, these are our red lines, these are where we're gonna fight. This is where the battle is going to happen. You could possibly maybe do that.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's possible. I'm not asking right now if it's likely or not. I'm just asking, is it possible?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it could be possible where two sides do come with an agreement where they're like, okay, this is where we're gonna fight, and these areas are where we don't
Mhm.
attack. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Let me give you a couple of. So I'm going to chime in now. Give you a couple examples here. One, you could conceive of the development of our technology. We like our technology is becoming more and more advanced. We all know this. It's not a surprise. You can imagine in 50, 100 years from now, technology being so sophisticated that we do have quote unquote smart weapons that are so accurate and our information about where the targets are relative to where innocent people are, that we can target and get only the people that we need. I'm not saying we can do it now, and like I said, I can't think of a war that has happened where innocent people haven't died. But that's not to say it couldn't happen. Let me give you another example along the same lines that Muhammad just mentioned. This comes actually from Star Trek. I'm not a big fan. I just happen to know about this example. Imagine two societies, and they disagree, like societies do, and they declare war on each other. And they come to terms with how they're going to fight the war, and they're going to fight the war according to uh, uh, a game of chess, and whichever side wins, whichever representative of their society wins, the loser has agreed that they're going to take 10% of their population of willing volunteers that are going to step into a machine and destroy themselves. Now, why isn't it war, right? You let's add some explosives in there. Let's say that each society has built special buildings that when they blow things up, that they're going to target those buildings, so they come to an agreement that they're going to target those buildings, and it's far enough away, and so you use the explosions and so on, the actual like explosives, and you blow things up, you target the people who only need to be targeted, and there are no unwanted casualties. There's at least two ways, and Muhammad's way, there's at least three ways you can imagine a war, a real war, where only the people that are targeted, or quote unquote only the people who need to die, die. The thing is, why we have so much difficulty is a it it transgresses our experience. We haven't experienced a war like that, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. We don't have the technology that can do that yet. That doesn't mean it's not possible. You can conceive of it. It just hasn't happened yet. Uh, at one point, do you know the first movie that was ever made? I can't remember what it's called. Someone look this up. I think it's called Man on the Moon. The very first movie that was ever made was a movie about us going to the moon. Black and white. It's a funny little thing if you've never seen it. It's a little dark actually, but look it up. It's very short. You should watch it. Yeah, using a big cannon. That's right. Yeah, good, excellent. I'm glad you've. Yeah, it's a great. If you've never seen it, you really should see it. If
There's a band uses it for their video too. I can't think of.
yeah, that's right. Point is that that was ridiculed because at the time it was so far beyond any experience we've ever had. No one took that seriously. It was laughed at. Laughed at. It was impossible to escape the earth. as a real beyond like a story, right, or a mythology or something like that. It wasn't taken as scientifically serious. Even to this day, even I'm not going to get into it. Even to this day, there are people who still think we've never left the Earth. I'm not talking about that. We'll talk about that later, maybe. And 60 years later, a little longer. I don't remember when the movie was made. I want to say like 1901, something like that. Someone fact check me there. I don't remember the date. Anyway, and yet now, not only can we conceive of going to the moon, we're conceiving of going to other planets where the moon was one thing. Imagine talking about going to our nearest solar system. Like actually getting something to our nearest solar system, that they would have locked you up because it was such an absurd concept. But come to find out, it's just a matter of philosophical imagination. It actually is possible, because impossible things you cannot conceive of. Right? So we're simply not used to thinking about things that are possible. Real quick here. Yeah, Venus, I mean, eventually, right? It's a longer story than that, but okay. Causal possibility, what we mean, we're talking about type of possibility that's limited to planet Earth and the laws of nature and so on. So I can't jump unaided, just with my muscles. I can't jump from here to my neighbor's house across the street. It's impossible. Nothing I'm ever going to do. There is no length that I can run. There's no amount of bodybuilding I'm ever going to be able to do that will allow me to jump that distance on planet Earth, given the laws of nature as they are, unaided by any technology. A trip to the moon, that's what it was. 1902. I wasn't too far off. What did I say? A man on the moon, 1901. Not too bad. Not too bad. A trip to the moon. If you've never seen it, you do yourself a favor after class if you can, and watch it. It's awesome, and marvel at human ingenuity and human ambition, and how we conceived of things given our technology back then. It's absolutely fascinating thing to think about. And that's what we mean by causal possibility is I am limited in what can happen. But it's logically possible. If the atmosphere changes on planet Earth a little bit, or if maybe on a different planet, maybe I could easily jump that distance. We already know, like on the moon, you can jump way greater distances, right? Because of the atmosphere. So it's causally impossible on planet Earth, but it's totally logically possible. You can conceive of it actually happening. So let's go back to our thing that started this. All of our information says that it is a fact that it is clear outside, and I believe that fact. Right? And I asked, is it possible that I'm mistaken, that in fact isn't clear outside? Is it possible that all of us are mistaken? I'm not asking if it's likely, I am asking if it's possible. Can you think of a state of affairs such that all of us are somehow misled, misinformed, the information we get is bad, whatever? Can you think of a possible state of affairs where it's actually not clear outside, yet we think it is?
I can't necessarily think of that specifically, but one thing I can think of is that it's possible because other things like that have happened before.
Yeah, simple as that.
Could I give an example of like a possibility?
Absolutely.
Like, say we're all down in a bunker because it's like the end of the world, and someone goes out and says like, says like, "Oh, it's clear skies outside, guys," and then we're all just let's believe, but it's really like really hell outside.
Simple as that. Simple as that. Look,
I see now.
do humans lie?
Yes.
Do humans lie for their own purposes so they can gain power?
All the time.
And if so,
Yes.
And if someone did that to you and it served their purposes and they were that type of person, absolutely. That's all you need. So, let me
I got
introduce
a question.
hold your question just for a second. I promise you you'll be
Okay.
next. Who's speaking, by the way?
Oh no, it's Basim.
Okay, Basim. It's
Yeah.
not there. You are. I see you on my screen now. Hold that question for just a second. I'm going to introduce one more term to you for the day, and that is counter example. One word, a counter example. So if I said, for example, no pun intended, if I said that all swans, you know what a swan is, right? Anyone not know what a swan is? It's the big bird, right?
Word.
Yeah. Uh, um, if I said all swans, this is a classic example. All swans are white. If I said all swans are white, the counterexample to that claim, so we recognize that as a fact, right? It's the type of thing that's either true or false, and it can be confirmed to a greater or lesser degree. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll do that here in just a second, Shireen, before we leave. Um, if I said all swans were white, a counterexample to that claim is one non-white swan, right? If I said all humans are mortal, mortal meaning, you're gonna die, the counterexample is one human that never died. If I said the dollar is worth 100 cents, the counterexample is the dollar not being worth 100 cents. So that's what a counterexample is. It's an example that runs counter to the main example. And it's important because if you can find a counterexample to a claim, that disproves that claim. And so here, when we talk about the word fact, this is important because fact doesn't mean disprovable. Fact doesn't mean is true to the degree that it's 100% and there is no doubt whatsoever. This isn't what we mean when we use the word fact. Fact means confirmed to such a degree that if you said no to it, God, that would be weird, and you would need some extraordinary evidence showing why those claims aren't true. This is why, like flat Earth, I was watching a thing about people who still believe the Earth is flat, or people who believe that we haven't landed on the moon, right? This is why it's so important in order to say we didn't do those things, you have to have such an amount of information, factual information, that runs contrary to so much of what we know that it makes it so unlikely that those positions are false. Could the Earth actually be flat? It's possible. It's just really, really, really super duper unlikely because of all the information that we do have. Could I not be here right now? Could I just be dreaming? It's possible. If you've ever had a dream that's so real, like Morpheus tells Neo in the Matrix, but many of you have had this experience too, a dream that's so real, right? Like there's memories I have. I don't know if it was a dream or not. It could have happened, maybe not. As a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, I had to ask my brother, one of my older brothers, if something happened or not. And I know we all have those experiences. So, is it possible? Yes, but it's really, really, really unlikely. And that's what we mean by fact. And that's why it's important that we talk about logical possibility, what's possible, what's actually possible, what's physically, causally possible. Are there counterexamples that we need to take seriously? Are we being consistent? Right? Are we being consistent in our claims? Right? Are we being clear about what our facts are? in our web of belief, in the things that we believe as human beings, as individual people who pay taxes and live next door to people and go to bake sales and raise children and donate to charity, do we care? Are you the type of person that cares about the consistency of your belief, and are you going to do something about it? If you realize, like the problems we had with even with possibility, with even the idea about very ordinary concepts like war, and thinking, does war necessarily involve the killing of innocent people? No, but it really seems like it does, because that's all you've ever experienced, and yet it's not part it's not a necessary part of the concept of war. It just takes experience and time to think that way. And you realize, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. War, you can have a war without innocent people dying. It's unlikely, but yeah, it's absolutely possible. And in the future, there's a good chance that there'll be more and more wars where innocent people don't die. And that's why we care about this stuff, right? This is what it means to try to think clearly about stuff. The next part of what we're going to do is going to deal with argumentation and the actual, how should I say, structure of reasoning, and what constitutes good reasoning and bad reasoning. So these concepts here, these definitions, these tools, all hold a place in what we mean by argumentation and what we mean by reasoning, proper reasoning versus bad reasoning, and so on. Okay, let's get to a few questions here. Basim, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was about to say that our eyes can deceive us. Like, you know, when you look at something and we see a specific color, but thanks to technology nowadays, we know that the sky is actually like violet, a
Yeah,
different color.
yeah. I mean, the sky's not even
And
blue.
yeah, and technology is like, you know, it's like taking over, like like for war and everything.
Yeah.
It's like because we know that it's actually better than capacity compared to like human capacity.
Right, to certain degrees, right? With any
Yeah.
given, with any sufficiently sophisticated technology, there's always going to be something bad. But the question is are those bad things worth what we get that's positive? But yeah, absolutely, our senses do lie to us. This is actually going to come up later when we talk about Descartes, when we do philosophy of mind later. So remember this stuff. Somebody else, let's see. There was a question, and then I'm going to get to. Can you explain the difference between logical and causal possibility very quickly? Logical conceptual possibility. And you can read this. This is in your chapter too, so do make sure you do the reading. Logical possibility are events and concepts that are possible because they do not involve a contradiction. A war without the death of innocent people is possible. Um, Going to a solar system, 5 solar systems away, is possible, and so on. It's just not very likely, but there's no contradiction involved in me, thinking about what it would be like to travel to the next universe. It's just really unlikely. It's hard to imagine. There are possibilities that don't involve contradictions, but sometimes it takes extra imagination than what you're used to conceive of. Causal possibility is what is possible in our example on planet Earth, given the laws of nature as they are. It is impossible to jump a mile in any direction. On another planet, it might be possible. On planet Earth, not possible. It is both physically, causally impossible, and it is conceptually impossible to simultaneously be shorter and taller than yourself. You can't imagine that. You can't even think of that happening. You can think of 2 versions of yourself superimposed on each other, but you can't conceive of one object that is both taller and shorter than itself. And it is physically impossible. I hope that makes sense. And then finally, someone else was going to ask a question.
I was gonna ask real quick. Could you compare? How would you describe like the question of how do you tell someone the way blue looks, like the color blue. Like if you were trying to tell a person who's blind the way
Yeah.
blue looks,
Yeah.
how could you tell?
Yeah. Okay. So first thing, everybody, time is over. I'm not going to keep you any longer. You are free to leave. You are free to stick around if you want. I'll stick around for a little bit. So feel free, but you are also free to leave. Be on the lookout for this weekend. I'm going to try to make some changes to the syllabus and actually update it so it better reflects the direction that I think we're actually going to go. And then I think that's it. So have a nice weekend and be safe. So yeah.
Have a nice weekend. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Take care. Bye, everybody. Again, feel free to stick around if you want. Hold on. I'm just gonna let everybody leave. And Mary's room. What is Mary's room? I don't know what Mary's room is. Oh, you're talking about in philosophy of mind, like Mary the scientist. It's an interesting example. Not many people know about that. Okay, so how would you so I'm sure there's some scientific things you can do that I'm unaware of. So there's that possibility, right? So part of my answer is I'm not sure in oh, now you're curious, you can't leave. Okay. So on the one hand, I just have to say, like, I'm not sure about specific scientific tests, right? But one answer would be is just rhetoric and language meaning language used to convince people. And given that any particular blind person is equally as rational as you are, and as long as they understand that even though he doesn't have an experience, other people might have an experience. Like some people can't experience love while others can. That person might not be able to understand what the experience is, but they could understand the proposition that. In other words, they might not have the first person subjective experience of color or love, but they can understand that some people do claim to have such an experience. Now, give me 10 seconds. Hold on just a second. Sorry about that. Now, a couple of things to consider here. First of all, is the nature of experience and some of the mechanisms of experience, meaning like our brain and just how sort of weird our brain can be. Let me switch scenes here. And just how weird our brain can be, right? Let's talk about color. Does anybody know what an inverted spectrum is? Have you heard of an inverted spectrum?
Is that where, like, I guess saying we get negatives?
Yeah, basically, right? So hold on, let me look it up here. Let me get some images. Let me switch screens here. So when you look up inverted spectrum, you will see things like this. So most of us are going to see this. So what color is this? You can see my mouse, right? Yeah. What color is this?
No, you can't see anything.
Oh, you can't see the mouse? Oh, sorry. So I'm pointing to the banana in the middle here. Wait, you can't see anything?
Yellow. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
Well, I can. Yellow.
Okay, it's yellow. What color is this? The fruit,
Bell pepper.
the bell pepper, right? What color is that?
Red.
Okay. And what color is the fruit in between the bell pepper and the banana?
Green.
Okay. If you have an inverted spectrum, here's what's weird about this, right? If you have an inverted spectrum, if you look at the spectrum color, then let's say we see on this end, if you have an inverted spectrum, then it's actually flipped. Your rods and cones, you're going to make sure you mute yourself, please. Thank you. Okay. Then you're going to see things inverted. What you're going to see is actually what's on the right-hand side here. You're going to see this other picture where everything are just shades of what? What you might call blue, right? So you see a lighter blue banana, you see a darker blue bell pepper, and you see kind of a purplish, I guess those would be limes or something. And here's the thing about an inverted spectrum is that if you do have an inverted spectrum, you are still going to accurately call the banana yellow, you're still going to call the bell pepper red, and you're still going to call the limes green. You want to know why? Because you will have grown up your whole life with people pointing to that banana and calling it yellow, and you're still going to associate that color with the word yellow. And so you can pick out yellow objects accurately. You can pick out red objects and green objects and so on accurately because you learned it the same way everybody else learned it. Someone pointed to something and said, that's yellow, and all the yellow things are going to have the same type of color experience to you, and you're going to call it yellow. Isn't that crazy? Now, there's tests you can do for inverted spectrum, but the point here is that your experience of any particular color is no guarantee that you're having the same experience someone else is having. And so the blind person, in many ways, isn't much different from us in how color works for us. There's just a particular experience they're not having, but then again, you're having an experience that someone with an inverted spectrum isn't having either. And yet they refer to the same color that you're referring to, at least linguistically. Which is why, how do you convince someone that there is actual color? I don't know. There are. I just don't know. I don't know how necessarily, but by dialogue and telling people, look, there's these experiences that we have. And it's kind of like understanding a matter of fact, right? It's not understanding the experience itself, it's understanding that there are these experiences, even though one doesn't have them.
I just thought of something.
Yeah.
That makes me think of something. If that's the case, okay, so I know someone who's colorblind.
Yeah.
And I've seen videos of people who are colorblind getting those full spectrum glasses that like allow colorblind people to see the spectrum the way that we see, and they can never put into words their experience every single time. Like if there was ever a video, I feel like that would be really cool. That I don't know if you've ever seen it. Like look up the videos of like people like because a lot of times like their friends and family members because the videos go viral.
Yeah.
And they'll pull together some money and get them these glasses just so they can experience color the way most people do. And like these glasses, like every single time, it doesn't matter who the person is, they just break down in tears because they can't describe the experience.
Yeah.
Almost the same way like when people describe being on like psychedelics.
Yeah. That still doesn't answer your own question, but yeah, I mean, absolutely right. And there's different types of blindness, for example. So people who are like legally blind, for example, what that means is their sight is too bad for them to operate a motor vehicle or anything, really even a bicycle, but they're not true blind, right? They can still see things, shapes and shades of things, right? It's not true blindness. They're just legally blind. And there's another type of blindness, and I'm struggling here to think of the name. It's so complete true blindness is actually pretty rare. There's partial blindness. There's another type of blindness. I can't remember what it's called, where the person reports that they're blind, but they can actually reach out for objects that are set in front of them and grab it accurately every time. because their brain is seeing it and telling their body where to reach, but their conscious experience doesn't have access to that. And so their brain can see using all the right mechanisms, and they can reach for things accurately, but they can't form an experience of it, and so they're literally blind to that experience. And so they can't see the cup in front of them, yet they can grasp it accurately 100% of the time. Now you
Wait, what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's breaking my brain a little bit.
Yeah,
Only because it
look,
makes me ask: is that like part of something where it's like Jesus? Like the same way people like will click it, like some blind people will click and kind of like bounce it off, and I guess like this, like the air, or is it that they're literally, their eyes are literally getting the information,
yes,
but the brain it has a disconnect
yes.
between the eyes? Oh my god,
So
that's horrifying.
well, I'm I don't want to use those types of words. I'm not gonna say it's horrifying. For normally, and I don't mean this in any sort of like superlative way. I'm not saying that this is better or not. I'm just saying, like, for people like us who are presumably normally sighted, there doesn't appear to be anything wrong or misfiring about our brain. It seems weird, right? It seems weird because of how we normally experience things. To a blind person like this is just how the world is, and it's no different to them than it is for us. That's just how they are. But it is weird, right? You also have to understand, look, we know more about the brain than we ever have. But anybody working on the brain will tell you we know, comparatively speaking, very, very little about the brain. Yeah? We know even less about the mind and consciousness. We do not know. Yeah, hold on. Let me show the notes here. I said, there we go. Sorry, wrong button. Just tell me if you want me to go up or down or something. We know nothing. We don't know how conscious, and I'm not just saying this. This isn't just sort of my opinion, right? We don't know philosophically or scientifically what consciousness is. There's theories out there, and every once in a while, yeah, like I said, Sharim, I said a couple of times now, several minutes ago, class is over. You are free to go. I said that I said that about 13 minutes ago. You're free to go. You're free to hang out. It's up to you. We're just hanging out, talking. We don't know how consciousness arises. We don't really even know what consciousness is, which is weird because it's the thing that we're most experienced with. And yet we don't know like how consciousness arises. In fact, if you want to know something weird to think about, how do you know that the people around you are conscious, or how do you know they have a mind? Right? And think about it for a second. What's your evidence? Your evidence comes from two things. One, or possibly three, depending on how you look at it. One, your own consciousness. So there's this assumption that you are conscious and what that experience is like, and so on, right? That you're a thinking thing and you experience things like color and taste and whatever it is, you kind of know what it's like to be you in the world and do things and so on. In other words, you're a conscious, you assume that you're a conscious being with experiences and thought and all that. Two, you know how you behave in relation to those experiences and that inner experience that's going on up here, your thoughts and your conscious experiences. You know how you behave in relation to that. Three, and finally, you see other people behaving in a certain way. And because they look like you, right? They act like you, they say things like you, and so on, right? They do the things that you do. You're conscious, therefore they must be conscious. You have no, yes, a philosophical zombie. Well, I'm not claiming they're zombies, but but Chalmers' argument is that they could be. For all you know about the world, everybody else around you could just be what Chalmers calls a zombie, a philosophical zombie. They look, let's just say they're human too, right? They're human. They act like you, they say things like you do, they express beliefs and desires and all the inner things that are going on up here. They'll look up and say, "Oh, what a pretty day. Let's go for a walk." And yet, it's possible that there is no conscious experience going on up there. The only evidence you have that someone else has a mind that is conscious is because your assumption that you're conscious and the correlation with that person's behavior with your behavior relative to your conscious experience. That's it. That's it. It's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like the duck test, right? Looks conscious, acts conscious, right? And so it's not horrifying. It's just weird, right? And but once you understand, like,
That's kinda what I'm. It's like when I say horrifying, it's more so of like like in a Lovecraftian kind of way. Like the you can't really like conceive it, right? Like in a way, like I can't like I'm so attached to sight that I can't conceive living without sight. Not that I can't.
right.
Not that it's wrong for another person to live that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, look, for a class like this, I think that's important. And just as a human being in the world who's interested, hopefully, in your own intellectual development, and who's interested in better understanding the world so that you can get on in it better, I think it's important to realize this. And I think what you said is important. It's oftentimes a matter of how do I say this? I'm not trying to be rude here, but it's a matter of understanding the world more, like understanding there's different types of blindness and what that means. Understanding that not everyone can have the same type of experience we have, and what that means, or the difficulty of imagining things that are possible, but they just go against how we normally think about things, and being uncomfortable with that, and rather becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? And when you do this, not only are you going to be more imaginative, you're going to be more creative, but it's going to let you understand the world in a more fundamentally diverse way. You're going to be better at it. You know what I mean? Can I switch notes, by the way? Can I switch back to my normal screen? Are you who asked me that?
I think it was Sharon.
Is he gone now? Yeah. Okay. Let me switch back. So that's it's important, right? Because if you can't do those things, then, you know, if you're mistaken about the world or you're wrong about something, I mean, how would you even know? And how can you consider yourself to be a truly, I'm being a little hyperbolic here, but a truly rational person, or someone who cares about truth and falsity, if you are unwilling or unable to imagine those things, to imagine alternative possibilities, and be willing to change your mind when it comes to it? I mean, it's important. It's important. Anybody else? Comments, questions?
Excuse me, Professor, how can I use your record? Can I have access to your record?
To my recordings?
To yes, recording.
Yeah. So I've been trying to experiment, which I haven't released any of the recordings yet, because the first two that I did, I'll post them anyway. They're because I had to record through WebEx, and WebEx does a really bad job of recording, apparently. But sure, I'll what I'm gonna do is I'll post it to my YouTube channel, and then I'm not gonna release it to the public. I'll just share a link so that only you guys have access to it. But yeah, I'll post it. Yeah, I can do that. But let's see. I can do that tomorrow at some point.
Okay.
So I'll make some time tomorrow to do that, and because it takes a while to actually upload because they're big videos, and then I'll post it and send you guys the link between now and, let's say, Saturday. How about that?
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too. Bye. Anybody else?
I'm gonna head out. Really appreciate it. Answered a lot of stuff I was curious about.
Yep. Good. All right, everybody then. Let's see. Psychology was my favorite class. This is my favorite class. Good. I hope so. It's gonna get, there's something for everybody here, I think. Have a good day. Appreciate it. Yep. Take care. It's something related to exploring the unknown, and it's related to Lovecraftian and that fear of the dark. It's certainly exploring the unknown. There is a certain, if I can be poetical here, there's a certain fear with exploring the unknown. Yeah. And it can be personal. Exploring things that run contrary to what we normally think or that are comfortable. Yeah, that's a kind of fear of the dark. Sure. I'm down with that. Yeah. But I'm also inviting you to have the attitude where you start to be comfortable with the fear, right? Okay, let's call it quits for today. So you guys have a nice evening, and I will see you next week. Bye.